everyone, and welcome back to the Spa Sisters podcast, season six. Can you believe it? I mean, 3 years, nearly 4 years has flown by. And today we introduce season six with our wonderful guest, Christine Clinton. We're very excited to have Christine here. To summarize, I mean, Christine has been in our spa and wellness industry for 35 years now. Um, I mean, the journey that you've been on, Christine, to get to this point is so intriguing, so interesting. But just as a little summary, I think you started educating people in massage and aesthetics. You worked for iTech as chief examiner for 10 years. You were a spa director. Obviously, a lot of people know you for the work that you do with cancer care. And and actually, what we want to talk about today is the angle of children and wellness for children. Um, I'm going to hand it straight over to Julie because I can't wait to hear your story. So over to you, Jules.
Thank you so much, Carly, and hello, Christine. Thank you so much for being here. I know that we've got you literally almost off a plane from Fiji, having done a quick touchdown on the way back from the Global Wellness Summit. So thanks again very much for making the time for us. So I know that obviously there's been a lot of talk recently about multi-generational trends, but I want to come first of all to focus on what actually inspired you to really put your spotlight, if you like, and all your efforts into the wellness needs of children. And how does the Wellness for Children initiative that you're chair of really address the very unique challenges that are being faced by our younger generations these days?
Well, firstly, thank you both for having me. I'm really thrilled to be here today. And I do love to share my story because I think it's quite a rich story to share. I've had many different roles in the 35 years that I've been in the industry. As it pertains to children, I think I was very interested in children from the very beginning. I came from a big Irish family. My mother had a little daycare center in our home growing up. And when I had children myself, my firstborn son had learning differences. And so I chose to stay home with him in the formative years, not really realizing then that the first 3 years of life are really the most important in terms of how memories are made and how our brains develop at that stage. So the first 3 years of life really um, are the most critical in terms of how our children will learn and grow. And so I was very fortunate to be able to take some time off. And so I did and spent time with my children then. But as somebody who was an immigrant to the US and had no family here in the States, I felt that my son, both my boys, they were only a year apart, but I felt that they needed more socialization. And I found a local school, the Goddard School, close by to me in Montgomery County, and registered them to go to school there. And when we were doing the tour of the school, the school director invited me to apply for the job because they needed somebody in the infant room, and I ended up being the head teacher in the infant room. I did talk about my background, and apparently the rules were such that you do not need a degree in education to work with children if they're under the age of 2. So anyhow, that really started it, and I was working with children quite extensively at that point, and learning that my son's differences were very manageable. He was not on the spectrum, but he had quite specific things like ADHD and auditory processing deficit. And roll on some years later, when he was with the therapist, I found out that I had ADHD. So I was diagnosed in my early 50s as having ADHD, which kind of made a lot of sense. It was a light bulb moment for me, for sure, for understanding my learning style, my teaching style, and everything else in between. So, as it pertains to the unique needs of children, I think I learned a lot about children and how they are indeed all unique. And we could have a room full of 3-year-olds and they might all be interested in something very different, but there's always a common denominator. And the common denominator for me was touch, because I saw how much it really helped my son um, to help him to relax, and for me personally to help me relax. And I was just saying, just the other day, I feel the spa industry for me, part of the process of creating protocols and developing rituals and then receiving rituals, it's all part of what's helped to calm my mind through the years. I think that's why I love it so much. I think it's why I still give and receive massage, because it helps to calm my mind. Um, as it pertains to children, again, to go back to that, I felt that during COVID, especially, we had so many parents that were struggling with what to do with their kids all day long, because most parents did not have their children 24/7. They have their children on the weekend, or they have their children after school, after work. But to be home all day with their children, some parents really struggled with that. And, frankly, not every household was a happy household. So you had some very unhappy children and teenagers and young adults all striving for space and time in a home that wasn't really set up for everyone to be in the house at the same time. So we started to get some calls. I work very closely with my niece in Ireland, who owns the largest privately held school in Ireland. And so we decided that we would have a wellness component to the school, and created a wellness program for the school before COVID. But during COVID was when it really came to the fore, because we had lots of parents asking us, what can we do with the children, not just from an activity point of view, but also, with the physical point of view, and particularly for the children that were neurodivergent, that can't sit still and that can't sit and draw or color. And so we came up with a series of activities to do, and we created something called the Home Wellness Collection, which was a series of breathwork cards, mindfulness cards, positive animal affirmations, dino yoga, storybooks, crystals, magnets, things that could show the children, because we know children are very visual. And in fact, there's a statistic that would suggest 67% of adults would identify as being visual learners. But the little magnet people, were able to show them when magnets are positive and negative, how they can attract and how they stay, and when they're negative, they can't attach to each other. So we wanted to simply identify and show the children how, when they have a positive outlook, that they can bring good things to themselves, and let them feel that they had some kind of role to play in being stuck at home, if you like, that there were things they could do to make themselves feel better, and that the power is really within them, from the breath work. This doesn't cost anything. So again, we were very conscious of the fact that I think, sadly, in health and wellness, it still tends to be sold to those who can afford it. And I've always been a fan of equalizing that and democratizing wellness, because I think it should be for everybody. It's not something that only people who can afford a $200 massage, whatever, once a month. It has to be much more accessible. So we really wanted to create things that we knew were science. There was evidence there to suggest this really worked, and breath work is one of them. And of course, the Global Wellness Institute is a huge resource for us. As chair of the Initiative for Children, we get access to lots of different science to support our efforts. And so that was one of the things that we wanted to do. So creating that, it helped the parents a great deal in being able to give the children something to occupy themselves with. And the parents themselves noted a difference with the children, so much so that they started to do some of the activities themselves. And so we sort of took that data and then created it and scaled it really for schools, and created a school program that we called Education from the Heart. And I've been working on that for a little while.
Wonderful. Gosh, sounds amazing. Just
So
like
good.
having the time to do all these wonderful things.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't even stop for a breath there. I just was on a roll. Sorry about that.
No,
See,
that's
one of the
great.
things that was presented at the Global Wellness Summit was the Wellness in Tourism 2025 reports. And I noticed there that there was this mention of this a multi-generational trend. So back to what you just said, to help into schools. I mean, do you see as well that spas could start to really adapt their services more and welcome children together, obviously with parents or grandparents? And what could you think that could look like in the future in terms of spa services, or even would you have to have special times for it, or would you say that this is something people could niche into and open their doors, like you said, and make it available to everybody at every life stage, regardless?
Yeah. Yes, I think it should be. And I think when we think about children in spas, it's not about children running up and down and making noise and people saying, "Oh, I came to the spa to get away from my kids." It's not like that at all. It's a much more inclusive approach, and that is that we know our children are just as stressed as we are. In fact, the levels of anxiety and depression amongst our young people is really unprecedented. And I feel that we have a duty of care to our young people to show them that there's a way to feel good in your own skin. We did a small study. We looked at young people between the ages of 12 and 17, girls mostly, that were self-harming. And they just have, and part of this is because they're trying to feel something. So in my private practice, I have a lot of different clients, and many of them are psychotherapists, and we talk about what we're seeing out there in the space, so to speak. And parents are struggling to find solutions. And again, back to the cost, it's very expensive to see a therapist on a regular basis in many cases. So what can we do with the information that we know? And I think that we can develop protocols for children. I think the touchless therapy, of course, is also available, so the children don't have to disrobe. Again, for children that might be on the spectrum and that are averse to touch, there's different types of touch. We are working on a certification right now, which we hope to have very, very soon. I had to remodel it several times because it was too ambitious. I tried to make it a very big I wanted to be able to work with children in hospitals, children in schools, children in spas, and children at home. And so I had to break it down because we had so many different risk assessments that had to be done for each option. So I had to break it into smaller bite-sized pieces to have it approved. But we'll have a certification for children in spas. And basically, it's really spas for the younger guest. We're not really saying children per se, because some of the young adults don't want to be referred to as children, right? They're 15 and 16 and they're teenagers or they're preteens, and they have all this way to identify themselves anymore. So what we want to do is make sure that it's inclusive, because and I don't think we have to do anything too special either. I think we need to simplify it more than anything else. Our children are struggling with sleep, they're struggling with touch, they're struggling with digestion, and so we need to look at those things that already exist on our spa menu. We're just adjusting it for the child or the younger guest. And so when we look at, I mean, I think about this when I go into restaurants all the time. You look at the kids menu and it's sausage and chips, eggs and chips, beans and chips. It's like, wait a second, why can't they just have a smaller portion of what I'm going to eat? And it's like, I feel the same for the menu on a spa. I don't think that we need to have a shorter version or a half hour, or we can only do their heads or we can only do their hands. I think we need to look at this through the lens of what the child is experiencing or the young person's experiencing and what we can do for them. And then bring the skills and the talents that the therapists already have and bring it into a ritual that we know can help the child improve their sleep and their general sense of well-being.
Okay, wow. So, I mean, that leads to my next question. Massage therapists, spa professionals who are keen to get involved in working with the younger client. So just to be clear, you're saying you're creating, as we speak, these
Yes.
experiences and rituals for the younger clients.
Yes, we are. 2025.
Wow.
Be on the lookout.
Yeah.
January 2025, we'll have a certification program for that. Yeah.
Wow. So the spa professional can be certified in delivering that. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And is that international or
Yes, it will be
US based?
international.
That's
Yes.
such good news.
Yes.
Oh, wow. And so where can people get in touch with you, Christine, if they want to learn more about the certification and the
Again,
training?
on my email is christine.clinton4@gmail.com. They're welcome to reach out there.
Wow. I mean, this is an incredible upskilling opportunity for existing therapists and spa professionals in the industry who might be a little bit sort of, not bored, but like doing the same thing over and over again and wanting to expand their knowledge, expand their skill set. Seems like a wonderful opportunity.
Well, I think it is. And when I started in cancer care over 20 years ago, we had a lot of people like, oh, that's never going to fly. We can never have people with cancer in our spa setting. It's just not something we can do. And then there was all the reasons why it wouldn't happen, for example. And cancer care is available in most spas now.
Mm.
And I think we'll see the same thing happening with wellness for, the younger guest. I think we'll see the same thing happening. We went from all the reasons why we can't to why we should. And I understand we have to protect our young people. I really get that. I look at, the situations that are sadly happening in general life where children's they're put at risk where they shouldn't be. So I understand the importance of a very thorough risk assessment for each segment when we're working with them. But I don't think we should deny our young people access to wellness activities, whether it's breath work or touch. I think touch is really essential. We're born with over 3,000 touch receptors in our fingertips, and we've over 4 million touch receptors on or in our skin, that allow us to determine pressure and hot and cold and soft and hard. Like we've all these touch receptors in our body, and when we engage them, it helps our brain to feel better. We
Mm.
make these connections, these neural connections that are really, really helpful.
Mm.
And the earlier we start, the better. The Global Wellness for Children initiative, it's not just me. I have some really, really wonderful people involved. Connie Morris is my vice chair, and she spent 20 years in the school district in Ohio working with autistic children. And she created several programs within that to help. She wrote a book called The Peace Plan. And we have another wonderful lady, Deborah McNellis, who has a program called Brain Insights. And again, it's really understanding what's going on in the brain of a child from birth all the way through. And it's really phenomenal stuff. We included those in our Wellness at Home collection for parents so they could read what's going on. So neuro nurturing is something that we feel happens from preconception, actually. And we talked, I did some training with Dr. Sergio Pecorelli, talking about the importance of preconception health and how listen, if you're going to plant a garden, we spend some time, we pick the soil, we try to find organic soil, we turn the soil, we choose the seeds we're going to put in there, and we water it, and we tend to the garden. And if you're going to grow a little human in there, you should probably tend to your lady garden and make sure that it's suitable, and think about who's going to be, what genetic download you're going to have from your partner, right? So you have to think about what does that look like if you're going to grow a little human being. And I think we need to be reminded of that in all stages of life. We have choices to make, and we can make informed choices. And we see that run all the way through the lifespan to end of life now. Even, I know we're talking about children, but unfortunately, children don't live a long life sometimes too. And I wanted to make sure that we could help the parents of children that are going through cancer treatment, or that are, nonverbal autistic children that struggle in otherwise what we consider normal social circumstances. And we partnered with a great company called Mindstream. I think you might know of Mindstream, but we did a program with them on the benefits of music for neurodivergent children, and we're able to show how much music really helps.
Wow.
And the BBC came to film that actually at Junior Genius in Dublin, and then they went on to win an award for that film. So I just think there's all these little dots that need connecting, and the connection to me really is, again, it's love, it's compassion for someone else's suffering, and I think touch is, like, for me, the center of it. If we can teach young people how to feel good in their own skin, if they recognize that they're empowered to do something, that, we points on our hands, for example, like in the webbing between our thumb and our forefinger, and you can massage that, and it'll help if you have a tummy ache. There's all sorts of things that you want them to know how miraculous this body is of theirs, that they can really work to make themselves feel good in their own skin. And it helps, of course, it helps their mind body connection. We understand now the importance of the microbiome and the connection between what we eat and how that helps us to feel. So I just
Mm.
think that even though children are learning, quote unquote, in school all day long, I think that we have an opportunity to teach them
Mm.
about themselves and their bodies and their brains and their minds. And anyway.
Fantastic. as always, you are always working and doing and moving forward. And it's just such a privilege to talk to you today and hear about your all the activities that are going on for you now and in 2025. And I guess um, for us, we're keen to know how our spa and wellness community is contributing to this expansion of wellness for children, and how do we reach more people and widen this offering. um, I guess you do work with great partners in our industry, but how and these are people that they know that that point in between your thumb and your finger is what helps tummy aches, for example. We would hope that our therapists by now roughly know these things about daily rituals they can use to help daily ailments and stress and anxiety and all of this. But um, is there a space there for to get this reach further away from the spa and wellness community? Is there a space for spa and wellness professionals to support wider initiatives outside of our industry? Because you say you're working in schools. Are you drawing on the expertise of other professionals in the spa sector to help? Because I notice now that wellness is everywhere, it's in every industry. People are starting to ping and go, oh, okay, we need a workplace wellness initiative in our automotive industry. And it's like, what? The two couldn't be more opposite, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
I do feel like it's seeping into every industry. People understand we're human. We all need support with our mental health and our daily life and our consciousness around health and healing. So I'm curious, how big will this get? How far can this go?
Well, um, I think the opportunity is infinite. To your point, everybody needs wellness, no matter where you are on the globe. And, wellness for one person is a meal a day, and wellness for another person is somebody who knows exactly where to hook into the occiput to take away your pressure headache. So, wellness is for all, and I think the collaboration is the biggest thing. We have some amazing organizations within our wellness world,
Mm.
and I saw that at Spark at Live Love Spa in Fiji. We went halfway around the world to spend time with people that I know from the Global Wellness Institute, and we just been to the summit. People that I know from the UK, from the US, from Ireland, from Australia. We spent some time with some great Australian friends who also have the initiative, the Hot Springs Initiative. So they're talking about community as well. So again, we're looking at saunas. Now they're building saunas to accommodate 50 people. When we look at what community is anymore, I think wellness and community go together in a way that I think it was always meant to go. I think when we look at our mental health, and to your point about supporting our mental health, like we're hardwired for society to be social. We're
Mm.
hardwired for touch, like I said as well. It's the first system to develop in utero is the nervous system, and so our peripheral nervous system is developing by week 5 or 6 in utero. Like we're meant to have that connection with each other, and I think when we are connected, I think we feel better. And I think that's measurable now. We're able to say that as a scientific fact. I think we obviously hit a blip in 2020 when we were in forced isolation. And I think we're seeing the outcome of that now in the need for people to be together, and for children, especially, and young people to feel that they do belong to something, that
Yeah.
they can, and again, they can do these things. I'd love to see where young girls would get together instead of getting on social media to get together and do some breath work together and see who
Mm.
can, who's able to do the work. The 4-7-8 breath is so easy, box breathing. We had Wim Hof at the summit. There's all sorts of ways you can do it without having to spend any money. So I
Yeah.
think it would be great that wellness is for all.
And it's seeping into everywhere, I feel, as time goes on, and I think it's a generational thing. The girls now that are 18, 17, 18, maybe they are sort of dabbling in this awareness around their own health and well-being. But even my daughter, who's 8, comes home and starts omming and says that they did it in school. And I'm like,
That's
yes,
so,
girl, this
that's
is what
so
we
great.
want, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. I think
So
that's marvelous. And the younger the better. And you know, that's why I was saying that in the formative years, what we do in the first 3 years of life is really important. And then certainly in kindergarten. And you know, there are some countries that don't really even have a kindergarten time, that the children don't go to school till they're 5. And you think, and this happened a little bit in the Middle East, if I may just talk about that a little bit, where you know a nanny is with the child, and the nanny may not even speak their English as a first language. So the children are not chatting or talking or engaging, and they're on their phones a lot, or whatever, some kind of technology. And so, you know, we see the birth of World Digital Detox Day, which is December 10th. And that's a huge organization out of India with Dr. Rekha. So, you know, we see that there is definitely a need to engage our young people in wellness activities, again, for to support their mental health. And we see it in everyday life. You're right, everybody needs a little bit of wellness, and what that looks like depends on where you are in life. But I think that the collaboration of all these great people and companies together will make it so that we can enjoy wellness for a long time.
Wow.
Yes, well, we look forward to seeing this all unfold next year, and keep us posted on that course, because I definitely
Yes.
would love to share that with lots of people that I know. But I think it's really important as well to have a sense of, I would say, of that community again. For me, that's, you know, bringing the children back in to the sense of where they belong, because I just see sometimes them sort of so separate. They're either, you know, in restaurants and they're on their digital devices. They're sort of like there, but they're not there. And it would be so,
Mm.
I think it would be so much better for everybody if we could start to sort of really, you know, start witnessing them and seeing them, and
Yeah.
bring in again into that community fold of, you know, with the grandparents or the aunties and uncles. I mean, I'm very lucky. I come from a very large family, and so, you know, the children don't have a choice. You know, they're hugged. They're
Yeah.
you know, we want them to be, you know, socially and involved. But I do get it that you know, sometimes in some places that's not possible. So if there is an outlet through school or through clubs or something like that to provide that support to them. Which brings me to my last question is, can you tell us a little bit more about this Junior Genius board that you're a member of, or a co-founder of, I think?
Thank you. Well, I mentioned my niece Andrea. She's like the daughter I never had. We love each other very dearly, and she has 4 boys. And really, you know, I massaged her through pregnancy and massaged her when the babies were born, and she knows how to do the massage. And it just became the wellness that she experienced in her own life. She really wanted to really amplify that and scale it. And so her school was sort of where we were had an opportunity. There's 450 children registered with over 80 employees, and we put together a wellness at work program, and we put together the wellness for the children. But Junior Genius Global really grew out of what we were seeing during COVID. And we have an office in Dubai, and we were hearing the same thing in the Middle East from the parents just saying their children were behaving like they were addicted to their technology.
Mm.
And we see how early addiction happens in the brain. And when we look at the development of the young brain, addiction is, you know, the reward system is such that it doesn't take long for that to happen. So we
Mm.
really wanted to see how we could make a difference at home and at school and in everyday life. And whether it was the parent or the teacher or the child, we wanted to see how Junior Genius Global could impact that in a positive way. And so we had this visualization of the triangle of learning where the child is here and the parent and the teacher. And together we get a feel of what this child really needs and wants. And I was reminded of my experience with my oldest boy, Jack. Technology was a way for him to communicate. So we couldn't. You know, he's 27 years old now, but you know, he was an Apple technician by the time he was 14 years old. So technology was his language. So, you know, you have to think about would it have made sense for me to take, you know, at that time, though we didn't have handheld devices like we do now. But my point is technology has a role to play in our lives, and it's not going to go away. And now we've got AI and all those other things we have to manage. What Junior Genius Global would like to do really is to educate and to allow parents and teachers to recognize that the needs of each child is indeed unique, And
Yeah.
there's an opportunity for us to see how we can use technology to help support. And then at what point do we need to remove technology and include other activities to support? And it's finding that balance, because I think that's the answer to life, really, isn't it? Finding balance in all those things. But if the parents are at least educated about it, I think very often the parents said, and I have family members do the same thing. They go into a restaurant, they think, isn't it great? The kids are so well behaved, but they're in front of a device. And you think, what about mindfulness eating? I can remember what that was like when you
Mm.
actually picked up something and you knew what it smelled like, or you could understand the texture in your mouth and the flavors are. And we don't have that anymore. And again, it's not to um, blame any parent for not being able to cook at home or not having the time to go food shopping, because everything is delivered to the door now. But, at a time when we used to take our children to supermarkets and they could see the food, they're much more connected to the food because they've helped you pick it. You pick up a yellow pepper. First of all, it's yellow, and the color yellow is a joyful color. And then
Yeah.
you look at, what does it smell like? What does it feel like? And then when you're cooking it, it has a very specific smell, and then you taste it. So the child is much more connected to the act of eating if they helped you pick it in the first place. But if
Mm.
dinner comes in a box and goes in the microwave at 5 o'clock, and then they're watching their device, and then they're just putting food in their mouth, there's no connection. It's completely brainless activity.
It's just
So
consumption, isn't it?
consumption. And so if we look at stripping it all the way back to say, okay, again, this is not to make parents feel bad that they don't have time to make dinner, but what if there was a slight change to the schedule? What if we just picked Wednesday nights is that's it. I'm going to work from home on Wednesdays, and we'll go and we'll decide what we're going to eat for dinner, and we'll go pick it and choose it, or even grow some herbs in the kitchen, so easy, on the window ledge,
Mm.
and let the child pick the herbs, smell it, rub it in between their fingers. You can smell it. The aroma is very clear from the get-go. And say, we're going to add this to the stew today, or the soup today, or the pasta today, whatever it is, but include the child in the activity. So that was really the goal for Junior Genius Global, was that we could global outreach, educate parents, caregivers, teachers, and the children themselves, so that they could pick it, what they wanted to do.
Like,
Amazing.
great. So, Carly, do you have anything you want to close with?
Well, you're an inspiration. That's
Oh,
what I'm feeling. Inspired. Watch this space. There's so much to come by the sounds of it in 2025. Thanks for being with us for our first episode of season 6 of the Spa Sisters podcast. And if you've got any questions about today's interview, you can email us spasisterspodcast@gmail.com, or reach out to us on our social channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, at Spa Sisters Podcast. Christine, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Spa Sisters. I had a lovely time. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.